China is extraordinarily dependent on the outside world because exports really have been the main factor holding up the Chinese economy. And now exports are faltering as people in countries are not buying as much because of problems at home. So China right now is in a predicament. I think that it doesn't really control its destiny.
While much of the world's attention has been focused on Putin's struggles, the Chinese leadership is on shaky ground as well. Gordon Chang joining us now to help explain. Gordon, good to see you.
Thank you so much, Doug.
The world was watching very, very closely last weekend when reports, now confirmed to be fake reports, when these reports surfaced that there was a coup attempt against President Xi in China. There were reports of massive military convoys moving towards Beijing, and there are also reports of a shutdown of all air traffic, et cetera, et cetera. Again, it proved to be false, but I want to get your take on something that the Foreign Policy magazine had to say about that. Foreign Policy reported, quote, social media has amplified stories only once shared in more exiled newspapers and among gossipy circles. In this case, a claim by a dissident journalist that flights in China were being canceled started the rumor. The first sign of a real coup would be a seizure of China's propaganda organs. Again, that from Foreign Policy magazine. Is that a good assessment?
I think it's mostly a good assessment. There certainly was not a coup. I mean, we didn't have a declaration of martial law, and we did not see in Beijing a lot of military vehicles and personnel, which is what you'd have to see in a coup attempt. But something did happen, Doug. We don't know what. So, for instance, we do know that 60% of the air traffic last Wednesday in China was canceled. Now, China's military controls all the airspace in the country, so obviously the military was involved in that. There was the cancellation of bus and rail traffic into Beijing. So something occurred. It's just at this point, we don't know exactly what that was.
There has been, and we do know this is a fact, a lot of social unrest in China. They are facing, in many respects, the same economic plight that many countries around the world are facing, perhaps to a larger degree. And with their draconian lockdowns from COVID, there's a lot of frustration among the populace. So what are your speculation about what may be going on?
It's evident that the Chinese economy is contracting, although Beijing is reporting minimal growth. But we also see property prices and sales plunging. And indeed, the currency is falling. The currency has broken the 7-to-1 barrier. That's 7 yuan to $1. That's psychological, both broken on the offshore and the onshore currency. And that's a real indication of pessimism. And it's also an indication that the Central Bank of China really is not able to do much when it comes to currency outflows.
Those remarks which you just made could conceivably be made about any number of countries across the world right now because we are facing a worldwide recession. So put that in context for me. Is it worse in China than we're seeing in other countries?
It is worse in China. Certainly it's worse than in the United States, for instance. But we also remember that China is extraordinarily dependent on the outside world because exports really have been the main factor holding up the Chinese economy. And now exports are faltering as people in countries are not buying as much because of problems at home. So China right now is in a predicament. I think that it doesn't really control its destiny.
You have written a book about the decline and potential fall of the Chinese empire, so to speak. How are things shaping up according to your predictions in your book?
Well, in 2001, I wrote The Coming Collapse of China, and I predicted the failure of the Communist Party within 10 years. So I'm clearly out of time. What happened in the interim was the 2008 downturn, which I think gave the regime a new lease on life. China decided not to have a downturn when everybody else was taking their medicine. And really what's occurring right now with China's debt crisis is that it's having its 2008 because its economy, which has been overstimulated, is now exhausted.
Last time we spoke, you made reference to the Party Congress occurring in the month of October. We're on the cusp of the month of October right now, the Communist Chinese Party Convention. And we would know at that point how Xi was going to be consolidating his power and whether he really would turn into a quote-unquote dictator at that point in time. Has the party Congress occurred yet? And what has changed since our last conversation in regard to the Congress?
The party has announced that the 20th National Congress will start on October 16th. And at the first plenum of the 20th National Congress, which occurs immediately after the end of the Congress, the Politburo Standing Committee, the apex of political power in China, the members will walk out from behind the curtain. And then we'll get to see, and all the speculation will end because we'll get to see who is the general secretary of the Communist Party. That's the first person from behind the curtain. And we'll see who else is on the standing committee. Everyone now thinks it's going to be Xi Jinping. But you got to remember, Doug, that this is an abnormal political system where Xi Jinping is the author of domestic policies which are failing, whether we're talking about COVID or the economy or whatever. And yet everyone thinks he's going to get his precedent-breaking third term. In other words, to become dictator for life.
There's another world hotspot that we're watching very, very closely, that being Ukraine, the war in Ukraine. There have been some really alarming developments there with the annexation, Putin's desire to annex the eastern portion of Ukraine through a sham referendum vote, apparently. The Chinese issued a statement in regard to that move by Putin, and I want to read that to you and get your reaction to it. They said, "Our position and proposition on how to view and handle the Ukraine issue is consistent and clear, that it is sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries should be respected." So Foreign Policy Magazine says to that raises the question, whose territorial integrity is China talking about? How do you interpret it?
Well, China has consistently taken the position that Ukraine doesn't have sovereignty. So when the Chinese talk about negotiations, what they're trying to do is rescue Putin from a failing situation. We have not heard those words that Russia should leave Ukraine. Matter of fact, about 3 weeks ago, China's third-ranking leader was in Moscow talking to the State Duma and in clear and unambiguous terms expressed support for Russia's war aims. And Xi Jinping, the Chinese ruler, he confirmed those when he was in Uzbekistan for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in the middle of this month. So right now, China can say things. We can try to interpret it through an optimistic lens. But Beijing is still supporting Russia, and it's all in on the war effort.
Gordon Chang, you offer such great perspective on the situation in China. Thank you so much. Love to have you back soon after this party conference convenes.
Thank you so much, Doug.
Hi, I'm Doug McKelway, and thank you for watching Centerpoint. We hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Leave a comment below and keep the conversation going by sharing this video with a friend who needs to see it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.